The morning sun was just breaking through the tall glass windows of Pinnacle Industries when Maya stepped out of the taxi. She looked up at the towering building, its sleek chrome and glass exterior reaching into the clouds above. For a girl who grew up watching her father work the fields at sunrise, this concrete jungle felt like another world entirely. Maya adjusted the strap of her worn leather portfolio and took a deep breath. The portfolio had belonged to her father, and she carried it everywhere as a reminder of where she came from. The leather was cracked and faded, but it held everything that mattered to her: her certificates, her research papers, and a photo of her dad standing proudly next to their family's old red tractor. Inside the building, the marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Maya's simple black dress and modest heels clicked softly as she walked toward the reception desk. She had saved for 3 months to buy this outfit, wanting to look professional for what could be the most important interview of her life. "I'm here for the final interview with Mr. Blackwood," Maya told the receptionist, a perfectly groomed woman whose manicured nails clicked against her keyboard. The receptionist looked Maya up and down, taking in her simple appearance. "You're the candidate for the senior agricultural technology position?" She sounded surprised, as if Maya didn't fit whatever image she had in mind. "Yes, that's right," Maya replied with a warm smile, trying to hide her nervousness. "Please take a seat. Someone will come get you shortly." Maya sat in the plush waiting area, surrounded by expensive artwork and furniture that probably cost more than her family's entire farmhouse. She watched well-dressed executives walk by, all carrying expensive briefcases and talking loudly into their phones about deals worth millions of dollars. She thought about her father, who would have been so proud to see her here today. He had worked his whole life on their small farm in rural Kansas, growing corn and soybeans on land that had been in their family for 3 generations. When the drought hit 5 years ago, followed by falling crop prices, many farmers in their area had to sell their land to big corporations. But her father never gave up hope. "Agriculture is the backbone of everything," he used to tell Maya when she was little. "People need to eat and someone has to grow that food. Never be ashamed of where you come from, sweetheart. The soil under your fingernails is more honest than all the fancy suits in those big city offices." 20 minutes later, a stern-looking assistant appeared. "Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Blackwood will see you now." Maya followed the assistant through a maze of corridors lined with photographs of the company's achievements and awards. They passed busy offices where people typed frantically at computers, their faces glowing blue from the screens. Everything looked so fast-paced and important. Finally, they reached a massive conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At the head of a long mahogany table sat Richard Blackwood, the CEO of Pinnacle Industries. He was exactly what Maya had expected, a man in his 50s wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His gray hair was perfectly styled, and his watch caught the light as he gestured impatiently for her to sit. Around the table sat 5 other executives, all looking equally polished and expensive. Maya felt their eyes on her as she walked to the chair at the opposite end of the table from Blackwood. The distance between them felt like a mile. "So," Blackwood began, not bothering to look up from the papers in front of him, "you're the girl from the farm." It wasn't a question, and the way he said farm made it sound like something dirty. Maya straightened her shoulders and placed her father's portfolio carefully on the table. "Yes, sir. I grew up on my family's farm in Kansas." Blackwood finally looked up, and Maya saw something cold in his eyes. "Kansas," he repeated, as if the word left a bad taste in his mouth. "And you think that qualifies you to work for a Fortune 500 company?" The other executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but none of them spoke up. Maya could feel the tension in the room, but she kept her voice steady. "I believe my experience and education qualify me, sir. I've spent the last 8 years developing innovative solutions for modern agricultural challenges." Blackwood laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Solutions? What kind of solutions could possibly come from someone who spent her childhood playing in the dirt?" Maya felt her cheeks burn, but she maintained her composure. She had faced worse than this before. Growing up as the daughter of a small-time farmer in a world increasingly dominated by big agribusiness had taught her to develop thick skin. Agricultural technology is advancing rapidly, she said calmly. Small farms often become testing grounds for innovations that later benefit the entire industry. Is that so? Blackwood leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. And I suppose your daddy taught you all about technology between milking cows and slopping pigs? Maya's hands tightened slightly on her portfolio, but her voice remained steady. My father taught me the importance of understanding the land and respecting the natural processes that sustain life. That foundation has been invaluable in my scientific work. Scientific work, Blackwood repeated mockingly. Where exactly did you go to school? The local community college? Iowa State University, Maya replied. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in agricultural engineering. Blackwood waved his hand dismissively. Oh, one of those farm schools. I'm sure they have very relaxed standards compared to real universities. Maya watched as the other executives looked down at their papers, clearly uncomfortable with their boss's behavior, but too afraid to intervene. She recognized the power dynamic at play here. Blackwood was testing her, trying to see if he could break her spirit before she even had a chance to prove herself. Iowa State has an excellent reputation for agricultural research, Maya said quietly. Their engineering program is ranked among the top 10 in the nation. Is it now? Blackwood opened her resume and made a show of studying it with exaggerated concentration. I see here you've won several awards. I imagine the competition wasn't too fierce out there in corn country? Maya felt something twist in her stomach. She thought about all the long nights she had spent in the laboratory, all the failed experiments and small victories that had led to her breakthrough discoveries. She thought about her father, who had worked double shifts at the grain elevator to pay for her textbooks. The research I conducted was peer-reviewed and published in several international journals, she said. The innovations I developed have been implemented on farms across the Midwest. Innovations? Blackwood chuckled. Like what, a better way to chase chickens? This time Maya heard one of the executives clear his throat softly, as if trying to signal that perhaps the CEO was going too far. But Blackwood seemed to be enjoying himself too much to notice. Maya took a slow breath and opened her portfolio. Inside was her life's work. Documentation of discoveries that had helped hundreds of farming families increase their yields while protecting the environment. She had come here today hoping to find a company that shared her vision of sustainable agriculture. Instead, she found herself facing a man who seemed to view her background as a source of entertainment. But Maya had not come this far to give up now. Her father had always told her that respect had to be earned, not demanded. Today, she would earn it. Blackwood leaned forward in his chair, clearly warming up to what he saw as entertainment. The other executives around the table looked increasingly uncomfortable, but none dared to challenge their powerful boss. Maya could feel their eyes on her, some filled with pity, others with curiosity about how she would handle this humiliation. So tell me, Blackwood continued, his voice dripping with false sweetness. When you were growing up on this little farm of yours, did you have electricity? Or were you still using oil lamps and outhouses? Maya felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice level. We had all the modern conveniences, Mr. Blackwood, including high-speed internet, which I used extensively for my research. Research, he repeated, drawing out the word like it was a joke. Of course. And I suppose you did this research between feeding the pigs and collecting eggs? One of the female executives, a woman with kind eyes sitting halfway down the table, shifted in her seat and opened her mouth as if to speak, but when Blackwood's cold gaze flicked toward her, she quickly looked down at her notepad instead. Maya noticed the exchange and realized that this man's cruelty extended to his own employees. They were all walking on eggshells around him, terrified of becoming his next target. It made her feel sorry for them even as she endured his attacks. Actually, Maya said quietly, I conducted most of my research in the evenings after helping with farm work. I found that the physical labor during the day helped me think more clearly when I sat down to work on equations and data analysis. Blackwood laughed loudly, slapping his hand on the table. Equations! Listen to this, everyone. Our little farm. Girl here thinks shoveling manure prepares you for complex mathematics. Maya's hands clenched in her lap, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. When people try to make you feel small, honey, it's usually because they feel small themselves. Keep your dignity, and let your work speak for itself. I graduated with a 3.9 GPA, Maya said calmly. I was on the dean's list every semester. At a farm school, Blackwood waved dismissively. I went to Harvard, you know. Real academics, not playing with dirt and calling it science. He picked up her resume again and made a show of squinting at it. It says here you speak Spanish. Let me guess, you picked that up from the seasonal workers your daddy hired to help with the crops? Maya's cheeks burned. Her grandmother had immigrated from Mexico and had lovingly taught Maya Spanish from the time she was a toddler. It was one of her most treasured connections to her heritage. My grandmother taught me, she said simply. How convenient, Blackwood smirked. I suppose that counts as cultural diversity these days. Tell me, can you handle a conversation that doesn't involve the price of corn or the weather forecast? The youngest executive at the table, a man who couldn't have been much older than Maya herself, looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. His face was flushed with embarrassment, though not his own. Maya took a moment to study Blackwood's face. She saw something there that surprised her: insecurity. Despite his expensive suit and impressive office, despite his Harvard education and inherited wealth, he felt threatened by her. She wasn't sure why yet, but she filed that observation away. I found that agriculture touches every aspect of human life, Maya said. Food security, environmental sustainability, economic policy, international trade. It's actually quite complex. Complex, Blackwood repeated mockingly. Right. And I suppose you learned about international trade by selling tomatoes at the local farmer's market? Actually, Maya said, her voice growing slightly stronger. Our farm exported soybeans to 3 different countries. I handled the shipping logistics and international compliance paperwork starting when I was 16. For just a moment, Blackwood's smirk faltered, but he quickly recovered, flipping through her resume with theatrical disdain. I see you've listed some awards here, he said. The Midwest Agricultural Innovation Prize, the Young Farmers Leadership Award. Very impressive, I'm sure, for local competitions where you were probably the only contestant. Maya felt something shift inside her. She had worked incredibly hard for those recognitions, competing against brilliant minds from across the region. But more than that, she thought about the farmers whose lives had been improved by her innovations. The Henderson family, whose crop yields increased by 30% after implementing her pest management system. The Rodriguez family, who saved their farm from bankruptcy using her drought-resistant planting techniques. The Midwest Agricultural Innovation Prize had over 200 applicants from 12 states, Maya said quietly. My project was selected by a panel of professors from major universities including Purdue, Michigan State, and the University of Illinois. Blackwood waved his hand as if swatting away a fly. Regional competitions. Child's play compared to real business achievements. He leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. Tell me, when you're not playing scientist, what do you do for fun? Square dancing, pig calling contests? This time, the kind-eyed executive actually gasped softly. Even by Blackwood's standards, this was crossing a line. Maya saw her chance and took it. I read, Maya said simply. Scientific journals mostly. I also enjoy classical music. My favorite composer is Bach. Bach, Blackwood repeated, as if the name itself was suspicious. And where exactly did you develop this sophisticated taste in music? The local honky-tonk bar? My high school had an excellent music program, Maya replied. I played violin in the orchestra. Violin, Blackwood chuckled. Of course you did. Let me guess, you played Old MacDonald Had a Farm for the school talent show? Maya's face remained calm, but inside she felt something crystallizing. Her father had always taught her that dignity was something no one could take away from you unless you let them. She had let this man mock her background, her education, her family, and her achievements. But she would not let him mock the memory of sitting in those uncomfortable metal chairs in the school gymnasium, playing Vivaldi's Four Seasons while her parents beamed with pride from the audience. "We performed classical pieces," she said, including several Bach concertos. Blackwood opened his mouth to make another cutting remark, but Maya continued before he could speak. "Mr. Blackwood, I came here today because I believed Pinnacle Industries might be interested in innovative agricultural solutions. My research has helped over 300 farming families increase their profitability while reducing their environmental impact. I've developed techniques that could revolutionize sustainable farming practices." "Revolutionize," Blackwood repeated, his voice thick with sarcasm. Big words from someone who probably learned to read using seed catalogs. Maya looked around the table at the other executives. Some were staring at their hands, others at the windows, anywhere but at the humiliation playing out before them. She realized that this was probably not the first time they had witnessed their boss destroy someone for his own amusement. But Maya was not just anyone. She was her father's daughter, and she had not come this far to be defeated by one man's insecurity and cruelty. Her portfolio sat before her, filled with years of hard work and breakthrough discoveries. Soon, she would show them exactly what they were dealing with. Maya took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. Something had changed in the last few minutes. The scared young woman who had walked into this boardroom was still there, but she was no longer alone. She could feel her father's presence, his steady voice reminding her that she belonged anywhere her mind and heart could take her. "Mr. Blackwood," Maya said, her voice clearer now. "Perhaps we could discuss the actual position I'm interviewing for." Blackwood raised an eyebrow, seemingly amused by this shift in her tone. "Oh, by all means. Let's talk about your qualifications for a senior consulting role at a major corporation. Though I have to wonder what advice someone from your background could possibly offer our clients." Maya opened her worn leather portfolio and pulled out a folder. "I'd like to share some of the work I've done in sustainable agriculture and crop optimization." "Crop optimization," Blackwood repeated, making it sound like a children's game. "And what exactly does that involve? Finding better ways to water plants?" Maya ignored his tone and continued. 3 years ago, I developed an integrated pest management system that combines biological controls with precision agriculture technology. The system uses beneficial insects and targeted application of organic compounds to reduce pest damage while eliminating the need for harmful chemical pesticides. She pulled out a chart showing before and after photographs of cornfields. This approach increased crop yields by an average of 35%, while reducing input costs by 28%. More importantly, it restored soil health and protected local water sources from chemical runoff. One of the executives, a middle-aged man with glasses, leaned forward slightly to get a better look at the photographs. Maya noticed his interest and continued. "The Johnson farm in Nebraska was facing bankruptcy due to declining yields and rising chemical costs. After implementing my system, they not only saved their farm but expanded their operation by 200 acres. Their profit margins improved by 45% in just 2 growing seasons." "The Johnson farm," Blackwood said mockingly. "Oh yes, I'm sure that's exactly the kind of small-time operation our Fortune 500 clients are dying to hear about." But Maya could see that the other executives were actually paying attention now. The woman with the kind eyes was taking notes, and the young man who had looked so uncomfortable earlier was studying the photographs intently. "The principles scale up beautifully," Maya explained. "I've worked with operations ranging from 50-acre family farms to 10,000-acre commercial enterprises. Last year, I consulted with Peterson Agricultural Holdings. They operate across 7 states, and helped them implement these techniques on over 25,000 acres." For the first time, Blackwood's confident smirk wavered slightly. Peterson Agricultural Holdings was a name he recognized, a major player in the industry. Maya continued, pulling out another set of documents. "I also developed a drought-resistant planting technique that combines traditional crop rotation methods with modern soil analysis. The technique allows farmers to maintain productivity even during severe drought conditions." "Drought-resistant," Blackwood said, but his voice had lost some of its mocking edge. "And I suppose you tested this revolutionary technique on your family's little plot of land?" "Initially, yes," Maya said calmly. During the drought of 2019, when most farms in our county lost 60% of their expected yield, our farm actually produced 15% more than the previous year. Word spread quickly among our neighbors. She pulled out a newspaper clipping from the folder. The technique was featured in the Kansas Agricultural Journal, and I was invited to speak at the National Farmers Convention. Over 800 farms across the Midwest have now adopted the method. The executive with glasses cleared his throat. Miss Rodriguez, could you explain more about the soil analysis component? Maya's face lit up. Finally, someone was asking about her actual work instead of mocking her background. Certainly. Traditional soil testing looks at basic nutrient levels, but my approach examines microbial activity, moisture retention patterns, and mineral distribution at various depths. By understanding these factors, we can predict how different crops will perform under stress conditions and adjust our planting strategies accordingly. She pulled out a detailed soil chart. For example, by planting corn varieties with different root structures in specific patterns, we can maximize water uptake even when rainfall is 40% below normal. The roots create a network that shares resources and provides mutual support during dry periods. Fascinating, the kind-eyed woman said, genuinely interested. How long does it take to see results? The first growing season shows modest improvements, Maya explained, but the real benefits emerge in years 2 and 3 as the soil biology establishes itself. I've documented cases where farms have doubled their drought resistance within 3 years. Blackwood was clearly frustrated that the conversation had moved away from his cruel entertainment. This is all very touching, he interrupted. But our clients don't need farming advice from someone who learned agriculture from her daddy's old almanac. Maya felt the familiar sting of his words, but this time it didn't shake her confidence. She was in her element now, talking about work that had consumed her thoughts and energy for years. Actually, she said quietly, my father was skeptical of my methods at first. He'd been farming the traditional way for 30 years, just like his father before him. It took 2 seasons of side-by-side comparisons before he was convinced that science could improve on tradition without abandoning its wisdom. She pulled out a photograph of 2 cornfields. This picture shows our farm in 2018. The field on the left was planted using traditional methods. The field on the right used my integrated approach. Both fields had identical soil conditions and received the same amount of rainfall. The difference in the photograph was striking. The traditional field showed patchy growth with visible signs of pest damage, while the experimental field was lush and uniform. The traditional field yielded 140 bushels per acre, Maya continued. The experimental field yielded 210 bushels per acre, using 50% fewer external inputs. Inputs? The young executive asked. Fertilizers, pesticides, fuel for equipment, Maya explained. My methods work with natural systems instead of fighting against them, so they require less intervention and cost less to implement. Blackwood's face was growing red. The interview was not going according to his plan. Instead of watching a simple farm girl crumble under his attacks, he was witnessing a presentation by someone who clearly knew what she was talking about. Environmental impact is another major consideration, Maya continued, pulling out more documentation. Traditional farming methods contribute to soil erosion, water pollution, and biodiversity loss. My techniques actually reverse these problems while maintaining profitability. She showed them a graph depicting the recovery of beneficial insect populations on farms using her methods. Within 2 years, we see a 300% increase in pollinator species and a 400% increase in natural pest predators. This creates a self-sustaining ecosystem that becomes more productive over time. The executives around the table were now fully engaged, asking technical questions and examining her documentation closely. Maya answered each question with detailed knowledge and clear explanations, her confidence growing with each exchange. The long-term economic benefits are substantial, she said. Farms using these methods show consistent year-over-year improvement in both yield and profitability. They're also more resilient to market fluctuations because their input costs are lower and more predictable. Blackwood realized he was losing control of the room. His simple plan to humiliate a young woman from a farming background had backfired, spectacularly. Instead, she was proving herself to be exactly the kind of expert his company needed. And that terrified him more than he cared to admit. The room had completely changed. What started as Blackwood's cruel entertainment had become a serious technical discussion, with Maya at the center, confidently answering complex questions from executives who were clearly impressed by her knowledge. But Blackwood wasn't ready to give up his power game. Enough of this farming fantasy, he interrupted loudly, slamming his hand on the table. Let's get back to reality. Miss Rodriguez, you can dress up your little gardening projects with fancy words, but at the end of the day, you're still just a farmer's daughter who thinks she can play in the big leagues. The room fell silent. The other executives looked uncomfortable, clearly torn between their growing respect for Maya and their fear of challenging their boss. Maya felt the familiar sting of his words, but something was different now. She had just spent 20 minutes proving her expertise to a room full of professionals, and she could see the respect in their eyes. You know what bothers me most about people like you? Blackwood continued, his voice growing nastier. You think that because you can grow a few vegetables and read some textbooks, you understand business. Real business. The kind that generates millions of dollars and employs thousands of people. Maya's hands were steady now as she closed her portfolio. Something inside her was shifting, like a door that had been locked for years was finally opening. Mr. Blackwood, she said quietly, what if I told you that everything you think you know about me is wrong? Blackwood laughed harshly. Oh, this should be good. Are you going to tell me you're secretly a Harvard graduate too? Maybe you have an MBA hidden away in that little farm town of yours? 3 of them, actually, Maya said calmly. The laughter died in Blackwood's throat. 3 what? 3 MBA degrees. 1 from Wharton, 1 from Stanford, and 1 from the London School of Economics. I also have a PhD in agricultural sciences from Cornell, a PhD in environmental engineering from MIT, and a PhD in economics from the University of Chicago. The silence in the room was deafening. Every executive was staring at Maya with their mouths open. Blackwood's face had gone from red to pale white. That's impossible, he stammered. You're just a farmer's daughter from Kansas. Maya smiled for the first time since entering the room. I am a farmer's daughter from Kansas. I'm also Dr. Maya Elena Rodriguez Chen, and I've been using my mother's maiden name since my father passed away 5 years ago. I wanted to honor his memory by keeping our family name alive. She reached into her portfolio and pulled out a different folder, this one thick with official documents and certificates. I completed my undergraduate degree at Iowa State in 3 years, while helping run our family farm. Then I spent the next 12 years earning advanced degrees from the world's top universities, while conducting research that has revolutionized sustainable agriculture practices. The young executive was frantically looking something up on his phone. His face went even paler as he read. Sir, he whispered to Blackwood, Dr. Rodriguez Chen she's the author of the Chen Agricultural Innovation Papers. Those are the most cited agricultural research papers in the last decade, Maya nodded. I publish under my mother's family name, Chen, in academic circles. My research has been implemented on over 50,000 farms across North America and Europe. The techniques we discussed today have generated over $800 million in increased agricultural productivity. Blackwood was struggling to process this information. But you came here for a job interview. Why would someone with your credentials want to work for us? Maya's expression grew serious. I didn't come here looking for a job, Mr. Blackwood. I came here to evaluate Pinnacle Industries as a potential acquisition target. The words hit the room like a thunderbolt. Several executives gasped audibly. The woman with kind eyes dropped her pen and it clattered loudly on the table. Acquisition? Blackwood's voice was barely a whisper. I'm the founder and majority owner of Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions, Maya continued. We're currently the 3rd largest agricultural technology company in North America, with annual revenues of $2.3 billion. We specialize in sustainable farming solutions and have partnerships with universities in 15 countries. She pulled out another document. Pinnacle Industries has been on our watch list for the past 18 months. Your company has valuable infrastructure and an established client base, but your technology is 15 years behind current industry standards. We thought a merger might benefit both companies. Blackwood was now gripping the edge of the table. You own Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions? I founded it 8 years ago with the money I made from licensing my first patents, Maya explained. The company grew rapidly because our solutions actually work. Farmers see immediate improvements in their yields and profitability, so word spread quickly through agricultural communities. The executive with glasses was now frantically typing on his laptop. "Sir," he said urgently, "Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions just announced a breakthrough in vertical farming technology last month. Their stock price has increased 340% in the past year." Maya nodded. "The vertical farming project is something I'm particularly proud of. We can now produce the equivalent of a 100-acre farm's output in a building the size of a warehouse, using 95% less water and no pesticides whatsoever." "But why?" Blackwood struggled to form words. "Why did you come here pretending to be a job applicant?" "I wasn't pretending anything," Maya said firmly. "I told you exactly who I was. Maya Rodriguez, agricultural scientist from Kansas. I never lied about my background or my qualifications. You made assumptions based on my appearance and where I grew up." She stood up slowly, her presence now commanding the entire room. "I wanted to understand Pinnacle Industries' corporate culture before making a major business decision. I needed to know what kind of people I would be working with." The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. Every person in that room understood what she was really saying, that Blackwood's behavior had been a test, and he had failed, spectacularly. "I came here prepared to offer your shareholders $4.2 billion for a complete acquisition," Maya continued. "My board of directors has already approved the purchase, pending my recommendation after this meeting." Blackwood's face was now completely white. $4.2 billion was more than double Pinnacle Industries' current market value. It would have been the deal of a lifetime for everyone in that room. "But after what I've witnessed here today," Maya said, her voice steady and calm, "I can see that our companies have fundamentally different values. Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions was built on respect, innovation, and the belief that good ideas can come from anywhere. What I've seen here today tells me that Pinnacle Industries operates on very different principles." She began placing her documents back in her father's old leather portfolio. "I'll be recommending to my board that we pursue other acquisition opportunities. There are several companies in this industry that would welcome our partnership without requiring us to compromise our values." Blackwood found his voice, though it was shaky. "Wait, surely we can discuss this. Perhaps we got off on the wrong foot." Maya looked at him with the same calm dignity she had maintained throughout his attacks. "Mr. Blackwood, you spent the last hour mocking my family, my education, my background, and everything I've worked for. You made it clear that you judge people based on where they come from, rather than what they've accomplished. That tells me everything I need to know about how this company operates." The other executives were looking at Blackwood with a mixture of horror and disbelief. They were beginning to understand that their boss had just cost them the opportunity of a lifetime through his own arrogance and cruelty. Maya gathered the last of her documents and slipped them into her father's worn leather portfolio. The room remained silent except for the soft clicking of her closing the brass clasps. Every person at that table was processing what had just happened, but Maya could see different emotions on each face. The woman with kind eyes looked devastated. She was probably calculating how much money each employee would have made from stock options if the acquisition had gone through. The young executive was staring at his phone screen, likely reading more about Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions and realizing the magnitude of what they had just lost. The man with glasses was looking at Blackwood with barely concealed anger. But it was Blackwood himself who looked the most shattered. His face had gone from white to gray and his hands were trembling slightly as the full impact of his mistake settled in. Maya almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Dr. Rodriguez," the woman, with kind eyes, said softly, breaking the silence. "On behalf of everyone here, I want to apologize for Mr. Blackwood's behavior. This is not how Pinnacle Industries normally conducts business. Maya looked at her with compassion. I appreciate that, and I can see that several people in this room are genuinely good professionals, but the tone of a company is set from the top. What happened here today didn't surprise your colleagues, it embarrassed them. That tells me this isn't the first time they've witnessed this kind of behavior. The young executive cleared his throat nervously. Dr. Rodriguez, is there anything we could do to change your mind? Perhaps if there were some management changes. Maya shook her head gently. I'm afraid the damage is done. My decision isn't just about business. It's about integrity. Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions has partnerships with farming families all over the world. Many of them are small operations run by people who look like me, who talk like me, who come from backgrounds similar to mine. I can't in good conscience associate my company with an organization that would treat them the way I was treated today. Blackwood finally found his voice, though it sounded hollow and desperate. Dr. Rodriguez, surely we can work something out. I was testing your resolve. Good executives need to be able to handle pressure. Maya turned to look at him directly. For the first time since she had revealed her identity, she allowed some emotion to show in her voice. Mr. Blackwood, you weren't testing my resolve. You were attacking my dignity. You mocked my father, who worked himself to death trying to provide for his family. You dismissed my education because it didn't come from schools you considered worthy. You ridiculed my heritage and my background as if they were something to be ashamed of. She paused, her voice growing stronger. But here's what you failed to understand. Those experiences you mocked are exactly what made me successful. Growing up on a farm taught me to observe natural systems and find solutions that work with nature instead of against it. My father's struggle to keep our farm profitable during difficult times inspired me to develop technologies that help other families avoid the same hardships. My background isn't something I succeeded despite, it's something I succeeded because of. The room was completely still. Maya could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of traffic far below. She realized that this moment would probably be remembered by everyone present for the rest of their careers. You know what the saddest part is? Maya continued. Pinnacle Industries actually does need what my company offers. Your agricultural division has been losing market share for 3 years. Your sustainability metrics are falling behind industry standards. Your client satisfaction scores have dropped 23% in the past 18 months. A partnership with Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions could have solved all of those problems. The executive with glasses winced. Those numbers were obviously accurate, and probably not widely known outside the company's leadership. Maya stood up and walked slowly toward the door, then turned back to face the table one more time. Instead of that partnership, here's what's going to happen. Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions will be announcing our new Midwest expansion next month. We'll be opening 3 regional offices and hiring 200 agricultural consultants. Many of your best clients will probably want to hear about our services. Blackwood's face went even paler. You're going to compete directly with us? I'm going to do what I've always done, Maya said simply. I'm going to help farmers be more successful. If that means competing with Pinnacle Industries, then so be it. The market will decide which approach serves farmers better. She looked around the room one more time. For what it's worth, I hope some of you will consider joining our team when we start hiring. We're always looking for people who share our values of respect, innovation, and putting farmers first. The young executive sat up straighter. Maya could see the interest in his eyes, and she suspected she wasn't the only one. Maya walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. Oh, and Mr. Blackwood, you asked earlier whether I learned about international trade by selling tomatoes at farmers' markets. The answer is no. I learned about international trade by building a company that exports agricultural technology to 23 countries and generates annual revenues of $2.3 billion. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving behind a room full of stunned executives and one very shaken CEO. As Maya walked through the maze of corridors toward the elevator, she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She had come here hoping to find a company that shared her vision of sustainable agriculture. Instead, she had found something else, a renewed appreciation for the values her father had taught her. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her assistant back in Kansas. "How did the meeting go?" Maya smiled as she typed her response. "Better than expected. Start preparing for the Midwest expansion. We're going to need a bigger office." The elevator doors opened and Maya stepped inside. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of herself in the polished metal surface. She looked exactly the same as when she had arrived that morning, a young woman in a simple black dress carrying her father's old leather portfolio. But everything had changed. 6 months later, Maya was sitting in her new Chicago office when her assistant brought her the morning newspaper. The headline made her smile. "Pinnacle Industries stock drops 30% as agricultural division loses major clients to competitor." The article mentioned that Rodriguez Agricultural Solutions had become the fastest-growing agricultural technology company in North America, and that many former Pinnacle clients had switched to their services after being impressed by their innovative approaches and commitment to farmer success. Maya set the newspaper aside and looked out her window at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Blackwood was probably having a very different kind of morning than she was. But Maya wasn't thinking about him anymore. She was thinking about the 150 new farming families they had helped in the past month, and the 3 new sustainable farming techniques her research team was developing. Her father had been right all along. The soil under your fingernails really was more honest than all the fancy suits in the big city offices. And sometimes, if you stayed true to who you were and what you believed in, the world would eventually recognize your worth, even if some people needed to learn that lesson the hard way.